Good afternoon, friends. I am Dr. Mangadram. I passed my MD anesthesia from Government Medical College, Amritsar in 1997. Now I have been working with Jammu Hospital for the last 5 years as senior consultant anesthesiologist. Well, friends, some of you may think that anesthesia is a boring topic, but I am going to assure you that this is going to one of the most interesting presentation because my main focus is my medical officer colleagues who are working in the wards, emergencies, and ICU, who handle morbidly obese patients. Friends, you will feel much more confident in handling morbidly obese patients if you follow these rituals, what we do in Jammu Hospital. Bariatric anesthesia is not the domain of a freelancing anesthetist who reaches the hospital when patient is already on operation table. You need an in-house full-time working colleague who works as a friend with the surgical team and who has his own trained anesthesia team. I am glad that at Jammu Hospital we have a team of friends who work together for the outcome, a safe outcome of the patient. Bariatric anesthesia is a big challenge for the anesthesiologist because of the accompanying multiple comorbidities like hypertension, diabetes, deep vein thrombosis, sleep apnea, etc. These patients need a structured approach for their evaluation and optimization before surgery. These rules apply to all the morbidly obese patients uh, for whatever surgery they are posted or they are admitted for medical conditions in the hospital. So we follow best practice guidelines published by these authorities. Association of Anesthetists of Great Britain and Ireland published their guidelines in 2007 and then they updated these guidelines in 2015. Similarly, Society for Obesity and Bariatric Anesthesia UK published their guidelines in 2012. The aim of all these guidelines is to achieve enhanced recovery after bariatric surgery, what is popularly known as ERAS. This is our ERAS protocol at Jammu Hospital. This is a snapshot of the whole process, what we do as the patient goes from the process of registration, admission, pre-operative, optimization, then surgery, and then recovery and till discharge. Our main focus is to optimize oxygen reserves to provide adequate analgesia, thromboprophylaxis, prevent regurgitation, and aspiration. So accordingly, pre-operative optimization includes deep breathing exercises. Patients are encouraged to do deep breathing exercises using incentive spirometry. BiPAP as and when required. Leg exercises. Clear fluids are allowed up to 2 hours before surgery. And addressing patients' anxiety related to surgery and anesthesia procedures. We use proton pump inhibitors to reduce stomach acid volume. Intraoperatively, anesthesia protocol includes pre-oxygenation with CPAP, induction of anesthesia in ramp position. What this ramp position is, I will explain shortly. It is of interest to anybody who deals with the morbidly obese patients. Use of PEEP and alveolar recruitment maneuvers intraoperatively, providing adequate analgesia with NSAIDs, paracetamol, and fentanyl. Thromboprophylaxis with sequential compression devices and extubation again in the ramp position. Post-op recovery protocol includes early ambulation as soon as possible. Sips of clear fluids are allowed as soon as possible. Again, deep breathing exercises using incentive spirometry, BiPAP, and as when required, sequential compression devices on the legs. And low molecular weight heparin is started within 24 hours after surgery. We especially try to avoid urinary catheters, NG tubes, or drains wherever possible. Pre-anesthesia evaluation, the objective is to identify and optimize comorbidities. So as a routine, patient's height, weight is checked, BMI is calculated, vital signs are checked and recorded. Patients at high risk of perioperative complications like those with central obesity and metabolic syndrome are identified. Particular attention is paid to those patients who have sleep disordered breathing like obesity, hypoventilation syndrome, and obstructive sleep apnea, and those who are particularly at high risk of deep vein thrombosis. Obesity surgery mortality risk stratification score is calculated. D. Maria et al. Described what is popularly known as this obesity surgery mortality risk stratification score. In this, a score of 1 is attached to each of these risk factors like BMI more than 50, male gender, age more than 45, hypertension, and risk factors associated with pulmonary embolism. So accordingly, the risk class, there are three classes A, B, C with the points 0 to 1, 2 to 3, and 4 to 5. And the risk of mortality varies from 0.2 to 3%. Another component of pre-anesthesia evaluation is patient's history of current sickness, any previous medical, surgical history, allergies, addictions, and physical examination, especially examination of the airway. This is the most important part of the patient examination for the anesthesiologist. And the features which we examine thoroughly in patients are their mouth opening, Mallampati score, the shape of the maxilla, length of the mandible, caps on teeth, artificial dentures, thyromental and sternomental distances, neck circumference, and neck movements. Respiratory assessment, chest is auscultated and x-rayed, and auscultation is especially challenging in morbidly obese patients because of thick layers of fat all around the chest. SpO2 is checked in the sitting and spine positions. Spirometry is done. Up to 91% of bariatric patients suffer from obstructive sleep apnea. And sleep apnea itself is a big risk factor for difficult intubation and post-op respiratory complications and systemic diseases like hypertension, coronary artery disease, stroke, arrhythmias, nocturnal sudden death syndrome. Although polysomnography is the gold standard for the diagnosis of OSA, but practically we use stop bank criteria for the diagnosis of obstructive sleep apnea. Patients with OSA who use BiPAP at home are reminded to bring their own machines to the hospital so that they can be used with their own settings. This is what stop bank screening questionnaire is. A score of 1 is given to each of these features if patient is snoring at night, if he feels tired and sleeping during the daytime, if any family member has observed him gasping or choking or stop breathing during night, if patient is hypertensive, his BMI is more than 35, age more than 50 years, neck circumference measures more than 43 in male and more than 41 centimeters in females, and male gender. The aggregate of these scores, if it is equal to or more than 5, it is a significance risk factor for OSA. Similarly, cardiovascular assessment is very challenging in the morbidly obese patients. Conventional physical examination to elicit signs of cardiovascular involvement may not be possible or conclusive. Like this exercise tolerance may be limited because of the weight or joint pains in the patients. Orthopnea may not be due to lung congestions. Patient may be sleeping in the semi-recumbent positions due to OSA or GERD. Similarly, leg edema may be simply dependent edema due to venous stasis and not CCF. So frequently we have to take the help of our cardiologist friends Cardiac consultation is needed as and when needed. It is taken to assess cardiovascular involvement. These are some of the basic investigations which are done in every patient, like hematology, blood sugar, renal function, liver function, serology, electrolytes, lipids, coagulation profile, blood grouping, ECG, X-ray. Further investigations depend only on the clinical condition of the patients, and they are advised when they are expected to influence the patient management. Preparation of the patient in the room. So once patient is admitted and taken to the room, patient's dignity is most important for us. So suitably sized theater gowns, disposable caps, foot covers are provided, and our staff is specially sensitized not to use any stigmatizing comments like mota. So always call the patient a healthy person. Patient is given opportunity to ask questions and they are answered appropriately and sympathetically. Patient is given orientation about the surgical and anesthesia procedures. Patient's cash, jewelry, spectacles, dentures are removed and handed over to the relatives. Especially male patients, surgical site is shaved. In females, we instruct them to remove their nail polish and lipsticks, etc. Intravenous access is started and antibiotic is injected after test dose. We do not give any sedative pre-medication in the room to morbidly obese patients. In the operation theater, patient is received with their proper uh, hospital dress, and we follow WHO surgical safety checklist, which includes patient's identification, verifying the procedure, surgical procedure which has to be done, checking allergies, investigations, consent, etc. So as the patient lies down on the operation table, standard monitors including ECG, non-invasive blood pressure, SpO2, EtCO2 and respiratory gas monitorings are applied. Patient is positioned in the ramp position, also known as HELP position. So I will explain it little in more detail because this is of interest to everybody who is handling morbidly obese patients. RAMP is rapid airway management position, also known as HELP, which is head elevated laryngoscopic position. So friends, you must be knowing for intubation classical position what is known as excuse me, sniffing position is used. Sniffing position is where neck is flexed and head is extended at the atlanto-occipital joint. But in ramp position, patient's shoulders are elevated to a level so that the tragus of the ear comes in one horizontal line with the patient's sternum. And then head is extended on atlanto-occipital joint. So in this position, in morbidly obese patients, mouth, pharynx and larynx come in one straight line so that you can clearly see the larynx. Then patient is pre-oxygenated and CPAP is applied, and after pre-medication patient is induced with propofol and succinylcholine as routine. This is our anesthesia workstation. We have GE 9100 CNXT model of anesthesia workstation with desflurane and sevoflurane vaporizers, and this is our GE B650 monitor. Intubation, of course we cannot deny the presence of an experienced assistant in the operation theater for intubation. Our airway cart includes a variety of laryngoscopes like Macintosh, McCoy and video laryngoscopes, intubating bougies, laryngeal mask airways and cricothyroidotomy kit. Again, there is this intubating bougie. It is of special interest to anybody who has to intubate morbidly obese patients in an emergencies. So I will explain it little in more detail. It is a myth that morbidly obese patients are difficult to intubate. I have seen in most of the patients what we call Cormack and Lehan grade 1 view of the laryngoscope. That means we can see the epiglottis, we can see the full glottis, we can see vocal cords, we can see arytenoid cartilages. So there is no problem in putting an endotracheal tube. In grade 2, where only posterior commissure of the glottis is visible, or sometimes only even arytenoid cartilages are visible, nothing else is visible. So in that case, this intubating bougie is very helpful, because if you see a small hole, even arytenoid cartilages, or even in grade 3 when you see only epiglottis blindly, this can be uh, advanced under the epiglottis, and once it enters the trachea you can feel the rings, tracheal rings, and once it is inside the trachea, an endotracheal tube of size 6 or greater can be easily railroad over this. It has internal lumen and two holes at its distal end, so patient's airway remains patent, or even oxygen can be insufflated through this before we intubate the patient. So this is a very helpful tool. It should be in all emergencies and ICUs, and in our operation theater it is hanging with every anesthesia workstation. So maintenance of anesthesia, maintenance agents must be very short acting, because these morbidly obese patients, we want them to be awake at the end of surgery. So desflurane has the least blood gas partition coefficient. It is least fat soluble and has the fastest recovery. So routinely we use desflurane for bariatric patients. Atracurium is our muscle relaxant of choice, because its metabolism does not depend on liver or kidney. Its metabolism is by Hoffman degradation. Analgesia, we use multimodal analgesia techniques, which include local port infiltration, use of paracetamol, NSAIDs, and fentanyl. We especially avoid intramuscular route of drug administration in morbidly obese patients, because the needle mostly does not reach the muscle, so drug is injected into the fat. Emergence from anesthesia. Full reversal of neuromuscular blockade is provided with neostigmine and glycopyrrolate, and patient is extubated when fully awake. Patients with OSA, nasopharyngeal airway is inserted before the patient is extubated. This is safe slide board for transferring patients from the operation bed to the ICU bed. Most of our patients are awake towards the end of surgery, and they move themselves from the operation table to the bed. But those who are drowsy and little sleepy, so we have this safe slide board. Morbidly obese patients, uh, because of their weight, they themselves and staff members are prone to musculoskeletal injuries or nerve injuries when lifting these heavy patients. So with this safe slide, it becomes very easy. I'll show a video. This is how it is used. Patient is rolled to one side, and this board is introduced under the patient, and our operation theater girls, who themselves weigh less than 50 kg, can easily slide patients of weighing more than 150 kg like this. So it's very easy. Post-operative care, full monitoring is provided overnight in the recovery room. Patients are nursed in the propped up position. Bed head is elevated up to 45 degree. Oxygen therapy is provided overnight. BiPAP is used as and when required. Those for those patients who are using BiPAP at home, so it is restarted immediately in the post-operative recovery room. This is our recovery room. We have special beds for these bariatric patients by Stryker company. Uh, the movement of this bed can be controlled remotely with the remote control, and this bed has four keyboards on all the four sides of the bed. So patients themselves can also easily manipulate these beds with their head up position and beds up down position. Early warning signs. Now we have sensitized our nursing staff in the recovery room to look for these early warning signs for complications. So these include breathlessness, restlessness, feeling of impending doom, tachycardia, tachypnea, desaturation, hypotension, decreased urine output, brown urine, excruciating pain in the abdomen, shoulder, hips, and buttocks, excessive nausea and vomiting, blue discharge via the drain. So, if any of these early warning signs is observed, our nursing staff immediately informs the surgical and anesthesia team so that these signs can be investigated as early as possible and complications can be avoided. Thromboprophylaxis. Obesity per se is a risk factor for deep vein thrombosis and venothrombotic events. So, thromboprophylaxis is provided to all the morbidly obese patients in the form of early postoperative mobilization. We avoid urinary catheters so that patient can move as early as possible from their bed to washroom. Mechanical compression devices like this sequential compression devices on legs are used in every patient, and low molecular weight heparin is started within 24 hours after surgery. Thank you very much, friends. Thank you.